Hi, everybody. Are you a caregiver who feels like you are barely getting by? You can barely keep up with everything that's going on in life. Maybe you're exhausted, you're frustrated, your relationships with other people aren't going so well. You have zero patience for that person you are caring for, who could be your aging parent or a spouse or a grandparent. And you're getting frustrated with yourself because you feel like you're spinning your wheels, or as people say, just running around in circles, doing a lot, but you're not really seeing any progress or any movement in your life. And maybe you're just not happy with the way things are going. So in this video, we're going to ask a few questions to help you think about the amount of change that you want in your life, and if you're serious, and how to balance all of these crazy caregiving situations. I'm Pamela D. Wilson. My website is PamelaDWilson.com. On there are a lot of hope, help, support for caregivers and aging adults. Please, down below in this video, click on the link to like and follow me on my YouTube channel. This will help get these videos out to other caregivers, other people who are looking for hope, help, and support. So let's start by looking at these three questions. So if you're a caregiver and you're frustrated, or you're just unhappy with your situation or your life, the first question to ask yourself is, what now? What today? Because anything that we do in our life really starts with what we do right now in this moment, and in the next moment, and the next minute, and the next 30 minutes, an hour, and the next day. So if we want to change our situation, a lot of us kind of look really far ahead and we're like, oh yeah, a week from now I want to be doing this, and a month from now I'd like to be doing this and that. But what we don't think about is it's what we do right now in this moment that can change that feeling of barely getting by and having too much to do. So think about what you can do today, what you can do tomorrow, what you can do the next day. And if you're totally overwhelmed and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I just don't even know how I'm going to do any of this stuff, think only about the next 2 hours, and the next 4 hours, and the next 8 hours, and the next 24 hours. Because really all we have is today. None of us are promised tomorrow. We may not even wake up tomorrow, right? Or the people we care for may not wake up tomorrow. We have today. And so by asking ourselves, what now? What can I do today about feeling overwhelmed or frustrated or angry? And thinking about up here, what are we going to do up here? Because to change our situation, we have to change the way that our mind thinks, okay? If we think today's going to be a bad day, it's going to be a bad day. If we think life is hopeless and it's not going to get better, that's exactly what we're going to get. So that first question, what now, what can I do today, is super important. Then the other thing, as a caregiver, if you're feeling overwhelmed and burdened and you're barely getting by, also look at, is there a lesson here? What is the lesson in this? Because sometimes if we can take this problem that we're experiencing right here and kind of take it out and say, okay, is there a bigger lesson? Am I not seeing something? Am I repeating a past behavior? Because truly, many of the problems we experience in life are the result of a lesson, or we have something to learn. And if we keep bumping up against the same old thing time after time after time after time, then it's really important to say, what am I doing to contribute to barely getting by? And there's a lot of different things about barely getting by, right? We could barely be getting by in taking care of an aging parent because we don't have time, barely getting by paying our bills, barely getting by because we don't get enough sleep. Well, what are we all doing that's contributing to that barely getting by event? And, silly things are, maybe we, a parent says something, right? And it upsets us and we react negatively. So our parent like, "Rrr," and we're like, "Rrr," and then you have this whole argument that just keeps going and everybody gets angry, right? Where if a parent barks at you, and you say, gosh, mom or dad, I see how you might be frustrated about that. I'm frustrated too. How can we solve this? So sometimes we have to stop the reaction that we would normally have to something coming at us in order to change that situation. Okay? So that's kind of the lesson of the repeating behaviors. What are we doing? Are we reacting the same way to a situation? Are we, doing old habits that just don't serve us anymore? And then the third question to ask is, what can I do for me? And this is a question that caregivers don't ask because caregivers want to help other people. You want to focus on everybody else. But the problem is sometimes we do that to the detriment of ourselves. So what can I do for me means, how can I reduce my caregiver stress? How can I feel better? How can I give less time to caregiving if it's burning me out and I'm barely getting by? So this really requires investigating and looking at options. Now, caregivers will say to me all the time, Pamela, I don't have time to do that. Well, if you don't have time to do that, you're going to continue to be burned out, exhausted, and barely getting by. That is the behavior and the lesson, right? It's the lesson because you're doing the same old thing and you're getting the same old thing. Well, if you want something different, you have to do something different. And then in all of this, there's distractions, right? How many times do you have something on your to-do list and you have to do it? But yet you keep finding like these 10 other things that you need to do first because you don't want to have to do that thing, whether it's unpleasant, like having a conversation with your parents about the fact that, you don't want to be the caregiver anymore, or you can't be the caregiver anymore, or it's burned out. So sometimes we put off or procrastinate or delay doing things that can help us because they're hard or we're not really sure how to do them or we don't have enough information. Well, again, that's where we have to investigate. So if we want to dream of this life that we want outside of caregiving, we have to have a plan to get there. And we also have to have a plan for what I call after caregiving, right? Because we can say, oh yeah, I don't want to be the caregiver anymore. I want to do all these things. And then all of a sudden that happens, right? And you may not feel needed anymore because when you were the caregiver, everybody needed you. And you may not have as many things to do because when you were that caregiver, you were barely getting by because you had so much to do, right? So you have this contrast of this very busy life over here and then this life over here where it's like, oh my gosh, I don't have to do all that anymore. Now what am I going to do with myself? Now I have to focus on myself. Now I have to plan. So when you think of changing your caregiving life to be less of a caregiver, really think of it kind of as what I call temporary retirement, because if you're taking care of an aging parent, right, you will eventually age. If you're married, you may eventually care for a spouse or a friend or somebody else in your life. So all of these things that you learn in the experience of caregiving, whether you're 20 or 40 or 60 or 80 or 90, they're valuable because the next time this happens, and it probably will, you will know what to do. You will know how to set those boundaries. You'll say, oh, last time I did this and that did not work out very well. Now I know to do this. So kind of look at this, barely getting by in caregiving and figuring out how to get more balance in your life as a lesson, a learning opportunity, because this is probably going to repeat again at some point in your life, whether we all want to admit that or not. We're going to have to take care of ourselves when we get older. We're going to be a caregiver for ourselves. So this is a wonderful experience. It's great life experience to learn how to get through barely getting by to change your life so it's manageable, so that the next time it happens, you're not barely getting by. You're thinking, I know what to do about that. I did this already. I know how that might work out. You're much wiser for the experience. I'm Pamela D. Wilson. My website is pameladwilson.com. On there, a lot of hope, help, support for caregivers and aging adults. I have a podcast called The Caring Generation. There are over 160 episodes. There's a book on there called The Caregiving Trap. There is my blog, a lot of articles. a Caregiver online webinar program that's about 60 hours that gives you everything you need to know about caring for aging parents from all of the years that I was a professional care manager for hundreds of clients, hundreds of families over about a 20-year period, actually probably into the thousands. So again, thanks for being here. I will see you all again soon in another video. Press that like button, press the follow button below.